Hi, everyone. I'm back. And as promised, I'm with Janet Ickes, and we're going to talk about money, profits, how to make it, how to save it, how to not lose it, and wondering where it goes. We're going to talk all about that because Janet is an expert in finance management. And let's get started. Thanks, Janet, for coming into the show.
Thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. It's just so much fun to get together and just share and have some fun with it because money's not always fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And money is fun. A lot of
It
people
can be.
think that money's not fun, but whenever you know what to do with it, it's fun. I mean, we all know what to do with it. When you know how to manage it.
Bingo. That's more the key.
Actively,
Is that
right?
management of it instead of wondering where it went.
Exactly. So tell me a little bit about your background, Janet. I know a little bit, but the people that are listening do not know why you're doing what you're doing right now for entrepreneurs.
It has been an adventure, which has been really cool. I spent over 20 years in corporate America, going crazy, doing the numbers, accounting, payroll, all that fun stuff that nobody enjoys doing usually. Found myself loving the fact that I would get all the problem children. And people thought I was crazy. Well, I am. It's okay. I like numbers. But I would get all those balances or the accounts that didn't balance. They have to balance. If one goes in and goes out, where's the problem at? And I loved putting the puzzle pieces together. I absolutely loved figuring that out. I got bored. I'm a terrible accountant. I get bored. They look at me, they're like, wait a minute, you're an accountant. Yeah, I know. But I would get bored because my box that I'm playing in, I'll play in the box, but it doesn't have square corners because I want to figure out how can we make it better. So I spent so many years doing that and realized I got the opportunity when I stepped away from corporate America about 8 years ago. We moved from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and I found myself in the entrepreneur world because I was also a small business owner with Mary Kay Cosmetics. I've been a consultant for over 20 years there too. And stuff that I had done there, they kind of go back and forth in the business world and everything, and stuff that I did naturally, which when it came to numbers, which was being proactive, actually making sure I kind of knew what my numbers were, was not the case with the people that I was networking with as I was growing my Mary Kay business in a brand new area. And the more I
Yeah.
started realizing this, they thought it was complicated. I'm like, well, it's not complicated. They're like, oh, yeah, it is. Like they're glazing over. And I'm like, no, but this is fun. And okay, I'm crazy. But that's kind of where it landed. I'm like, you know what, Lord, what are you calling me to do? What he was calling me to do was these people that I was networking with, do what I loved out of corporate, couple that with where I loved out of the Mary Kay in that business world, and bring it to the entrepreneurs and help them realize that money management is just numbers. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be stressful. And it can actually be fun. You might as well make it fun because if I'm going to do it, it's got to be fun. So
Yeah,
there,
I'm with you.
Excel
And
with me was born.
a lot of people hear the word money or numbers and they just,
They
like you
glass
say, they
over.
glaze over and they're like, I don't know how, I'm like incompetent, don't know how to do it. So how do you
Exactly.
empower your clients to feel less stressed about working with their numbers?
Basically, it's pretty simple. One thing is I try to take a step back and I encourage them to take a step back. Let's take the emotion out of it because let's face facts. When you don't have money or if you get too much and you just don't know what to do, what's a confused mind do? Nothing. So what we do is the first thing is how I get them to empower is take a step back. Let's just take that step. Let's look at the big picture and then let's build a system. What I love doing in corporate so much was to build those systems to make it simple. I won't say easy. It's never easy, but I will say simple. And when you know where you got to go, I always reverse engineer. And that, folks, really confuses people. I'm like, well, what's the end result? I had too much in auditing and everything else. I had to figure out how to get there. So
Yeah.
let's figure out how to get there. So let's start with what do you want? What do you, and I get them to share with me what they're looking to accomplish. Then we build the system to get that accomplishment possible, but not just possible, keep it simple as well. And it can be done.
Oh, that's interesting. So, what program do you use, or what do you recommend people use? Is it QuickBooks? Is it something else? Where do you go with that?
There's a multitude out there. I mean, first and foremost, start where you're at. So there's definitely scales there. But if you're in a business and you're going to run a business, you need a software to do that. The
Absolutely.
software that I've chosen to partner with is QuickBooks Online. I have
Mhm.
found that most folks, that's a good level for most. It is growable in the respect that you can start small and keep adding to, and it will convert that up. So I ended up specializing in QuickBooks Online. So I'm a pro advisor with QuickBooks and just want to be able to make sure that folks that choose to use that software for its potential. Because I also found as I'm working with folks, even in something simple as Microsoft Excel, they use like 10%
Yeah.
of what it's capable of doing.
Yeah.
I want you to use at least 90. Okay, let's go for 70. Let's at least use the system for what it's there for and use the features and functionalities to their fullest potential. So
Yeah.
that's the software that I use is QuickBooks Online, and really empowering them to make sure, I would say your numbers should be at your fingertips. Pick up your phone, your numbers are at your fingertips, provided you have the steps in place and the processes in place to make sure that they're accurate.
Yeah, provided the numbers are in the software program.
Exactly.
Are there other money management software programs that you would recommend?
There's a
Besides,
ton out there. There is really a ton. It all depends on what you're looking for. There's different levels. There's all kind of different options out there. I mean, there's FreshBooks, there's Zoho books. I mean, we could list them on probably till next year, going out with the options that are out there. The trick is, and what I want to encourage folks is what do you need to accomplish? What are you looking for? What do you need? Are you going to need an inventory? Most systems do a cost of goods sold if it's set up right, but do you need inventory? Some programs do or do not. Some programs have better reviews when it comes to invoicing. Some have better with receipt snap. One of the features I like with QuickBooks is I can snap a receipt or have my client snap the receipt and it pops up into QuickBooks. So if I'm helping them do their books or they're doing their books, guess what? We don't have to chase receipts that are in the pockets, under seats, somewhere. Maybe Winston, in my case, Winston he's my dog. He loves to get on my desk and take off with stuff, including $100 bills, but that's a whole nother ballgame for another day. But little things like that, let's get the things and get them organized. So figure out what features you need and then talk to someone who has an idea. Who's
right.
used it before? Who hasn't? And especially QuickBooks Online. There's 5 different levels of QuickBooks Online. I think how many there are now.
Yeah.
What do you need? And I'm a firm believer, start what you need, work that out, learn that, and then add to it if you need to.
Yeah.
But there are some key points that you need to know. If there's certain things you need, then we have to go to a certain level.
Yeah.
So instead of guessing, talk to somebody.
Yeah, and keep it simple. I agree with that. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so you left your corporate career and
Mhm.
you were already doing Mary Kay. What was the obstacle? What was your main obstacle that you faced whenever you decided to quit, launch, and then go full time into it?
It was a pretty wild because what I realized is I had been unemployed for a long time. I didn't have an entrepreneur brain. I did, but I didn't. Mary Kay was a small portion of my life.
Mhm.
So I had to turn off the typical employee and go and put basically the hat on as an entrepreneur. And I found that a little challenging at first because I was just so used to the day to day to day to day to day to day. That's what I did for 20 plus years. And I did that to a point in Mary Kay, but it was a different because now I had a product with Mary Kay. I don't have that. This is a service. So I had to change my mindset and get myself out of the employee brain and get me into the entrepreneur brain, which means I get to juggle all the hats. I'm not just the employee. I'm also the CEO, the CFO, CEO, and whatever O's you want to put on there. They're all my hats to wear. And now I've got to put all these hats on and I've got to figure out how to balance it. So I think that was one of my main challenges when I shifted full time into this is it was all different. And I had to figure out how to bring all these parts and things that I had done for years into a system that was going to work as an entrepreneur. But I also had to make sure I brought all those together.
Yeah, a lot of people that are listening are exiting corporate and going into their own entrepreneurial journey, so to
Different.
speak. What advice would you give them as they're getting ready to launch? Like, what did you figure out worked for you? Because you're used to doing the 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or whatever, having preset only one thing to do. How
Yep.
did you organize yourself, and how would you explain for them to organize themselves as they enter this awesome world of
Oh, it
entrepreneurship?
is great. It's great. And it's filled with flexibility. And that is probably the biggest reason I went with that. I got to take care of my dad his last couple of years while he was still here. And it was amazing. And he would look at me and says, honey, how in the world did you get all this time off? Don't worry about it, Dad. I got it. He was 89. He didn't need to know anything different.
Yeah.
But what happened is I was working at night. I was working here. So what I found is I had to take that step back and I had to go back to time blocking, something I had done pretty consistently, but had gotten away from.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I had to then take a step back. We did weekly plan sheets in Mary Kay all the time. That was no problem. Now I have to apply that to my whole world. So I started time blocking, but I had to time block segments that included time for visionary work, I had to block time for doing client work. I have to block time for being the marketer. I have, so I really planned that out. And in my Google Calendar, which I color code, I'm a color code nut. I just went digital. I
Yeah.
went through and I blocked those times. So marketing was one color, client fulfillment was one color, and all those other hats that I had to wear, I blocked them. And then as I'm meeting with clients, I brought them all into, so they got to pick the times on my calendar. So, like you can do some automation there, but they
Mhm.
picked during those times. It wasn't they could grab my calendar anywhere.
Yeah.
And that was the challenge because I was like, oh, whenever I can do it. No, 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 no. You can network yourself crazy. You can client yourself crazy
Yeah.
if you don't get that organized. And because you don't want to keep jumping from project to project to project or hat to hat to hat. You've got to stay focused, at
That's
least for a
right.
certain time frame. And whatever that frame is, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hour blocks, whatever works for you. There's some people I know that do 15-minute blocks. I'm not quite that crazy.
Yeah,
Like I
what
like two
that's
hour
what I was wanting to
windows.
ask you is
Mhm.
what amount of time blocks do you do, say, for a
I do
project?
two. Yeah, I do 2 hour windows. So sometimes I might need a 4 hour block. So then I put two back to back. But
Yeah,
I start with the basics. So I'll usually do like my client days, I tend to do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I have 6 hour blocks on both of those, but then I don't do them Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
right.
unless there's certain, so you kind of got to figure out what works for you, but at the same time, and then you treat those. I think the biggest key is treat those time as an appointment at the doctor.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, you can bleed over left and right, and then you're going to have all kinds of issues. You're never going to get anything done, and you're going to be running in circles trying to figure out how to run your business, let alone figure out how to run your numbers.
Yeah, I love having like a 15-minute pad in between,
Oh,
each
yeah, that's a great
because
point. Yeah, I
things,
do too. I have 15 minutes padded automatically.
yeah, because things do happen that way. So,
Mhm.
what would you say a piece of advice would be that you would give yourself if you look back and you're 18, what would you tell that girl about what
That
you've
it
learned
is
so far?
possible. Because back then I didn't even think running my own business, short of a Mary Kay alongside of my corporate, that it is possible to have a flexible job, because in corporate America, flexibility doesn't exist, just saying. Like I found myself running 60 and 70-hour work weeks and was basically had an issue trying to go get my sick son who had a concussion, and I had to fight to be able to go take him to the doctor. What's
Yeah.
wrong with that picture? So to think about when I was younger, and that's just all I knew was corporate. You went to college, we went through school, you go to college, you go to work,
Hmm.
you build a career, and it's a great corporate career. And I did well, but what I missed was that flexibility and the ability to, that's what I kept running up against. So I would have loved to have done this sooner. I know that the Lord used those years in corporate for me to realize what I needed to do when I got here, but to know that it was possible. Because initially when I first said, I'm like, this is never going to work. Like I just wasn't, because there were so many hats. I was so frustrated. It is possible. Keep putting the steps in place. Keep actually just taking one step in front of the other. Do one thing better each every day. Okay, that didn't work. And constantly look at improving. What can you do differently? That worked, that didn't. Great. Now what can we do tomorrow?
Right.
And
Talk
kind of go on.
about a story of one of your clients. Think about a success and what happened in the journey of the client. Give me a little bit of a scenario of how you've helped one person that you can think of, right, like that.
The first one that comes is talking with these folks that I'm networking with. One particular comes to mind, and she had no tax time took her, oh, I don't know, 25,000 hours, it felt like, to be able to go find all of her receipts. And I'm like, what are you still doing? What do you mean you're still working on it? She's like, when she was hunting for receipts and chasing them, it was hours. It was like 4 days later, she's still fighting with this stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, I'm still trying to find those receipts. I'm like, time out. What do you? And we actually started talking. And by the next year, I said, you know what, we've got to change this. You're spending way too much time. You're not getting out doing your job. You're not helping anybody that you're supposed to be helping. Rather, you're chasing receipts that you tucked away and can't find now, and trying to figure it out. So we started by taking her to Excel, because she was a pen and paper person.
Mhm.
So she was just writing everything down and then re-adding and resubtracting and the erasers. And then I'm like, okay, let's start small. So what we did is we took baby steps. First thing is we moved her to Excel for the next couple of months. Guess what? Now the math was done. Then once we got that done, I was able to take it to the next step, and now we have her in QuickBooks. She's on, on the level that goes for her. And guess what? She snaps her receipts. They come in, everything's ready to go. Here we go. So now tax time, as long as she keeps up with it and doesn't get a little waylaid, which is why I work with my folks and I have an accountability and support plan, because I'm like, okay, we got to touch base quarterly, because if we touch base at the end of the year, it's going to cost you a lot more, not only in money and time and sanity, but no, we want to work with you throughout the year so that you're looking at 1 month, 3 months, not 12. So
Yeah.
she now can run her reports, and by January 31st, she has everything over to her tax accountant and she's moved on to the next year. So that's what it's all about. That's what it should be.
That's the way it should be. Absolutely. When I work with clients, it's the same thing. It's like, let's just do it as you go. Let's not backtrack and do it all at once, because then you'll be overwhelmed. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
because you get too overwhelmed. You're like, yeah, just throw in the towel. We don't care. Yes, you do.
Well, I love the title of your book. I talk about your book for just a minute to the people listening. So I think it's wonderful. It's a good book.
Money doesn't spend itself. So where did it go? That has just been what's got people back to kind of where we're at. Is it's complicated. It's confusing. No, it's not. Money doesn't spend itself. So you should know where it went, basically. And that's where a lot of the premise is. So it kind of walks through kind of thinking about, okay, if money doesn't spend itself, where did it go? So what happened to it? What do I need to do differently? And what steps can I put in today to make it simple? As I said, I'll never say easy, but make it simple and be proactive, not reactive. Because let's face facts, when you make decisions, when you reactively make a decision, it's very rarely the right decision, or it's definitely probably not the one that's best for you. But if you can make a decision by stepping back and looking at the big picture, because you have everything in front of you, then you're going to make a much better decision, which is going to help you to be more successful moving forward. And that's what the book's talking about, is that there's a simple solution. And that's kind of helping you to think and putting those things in place. So what can you do? And those steps to do that.
I love that. We're so simpatico. We speak the same language.
We do.
Different topics. It's simple, but it's easy to get organized. You don't be reactive, you be proactive. I mean, I think that this, as I go through this podcast and interview so many people, it's interesting because we're all saying the same thing. We're just doing the different modalities of what you need to do as an entrepreneur. And there's, like you say, there's so many facets to being an entrepreneur. You need to be management. You need to be time management. You need to be able to organize your stuff. You need to have space management. You need to have data management. It just goes on and on.
Never ending.
Ending, but that's why I love putting out this podcast, because then my listeners can hear all the different aspects from experts like yourself, Janet, of what the best practices are. And I really agree, there's no one way to do anything, but there's always the easiest, possibly best way for you and your own person.
Exactly. And you got to make it fit. And that's why I always come back and say, like I make this horrible account, because most of the time people think it has to be so rigid. There's no twist, there's no turns, there's no anything. Like, yeah, we got to play in the box. There's no doubt about that. We have to play in the box, but our box doesn't have to have square corners.
What box is it going to be?
Was that, so that's just kind of what makes, so I like to figure out how to get this to work for them. And that's what makes, as you said, Kathi, exactly what you're saying. It's the organization, it's the simplicity, it's the one step in front of the other, and just keep going. And that's what it's been such a pleasure working with you, and being able to talk, because sometimes this goes crazy and people gloss over when you're talking about
They're
this.
like, yeah, oh, no. I worked with a client yesterday, and we're talking about her bookkeeping and her record keeping, and being a little bit behind on submitting her taxes because it goes into overwhelm. So entrepreneurs, we're all in the same boat. We just have various degrees of expertise.
Exactly.
We all have to do the same thing and put on the 50 zillion hats. And this is the thing too, for the people listening out there, don't go easy on yourself. There are certain things that you can do amazingly well, and certain things that you can't. And the things that you can't, masters hire masters, right? So if you're having an issue around money or money management, or trying to figure out where did the money go, Janet would be a good person to tap into, to just ask, hey, how can I resolve this? How can you help? So speaking of that, I know you have a valuable free resource that you're going to offer. And what might that be, Janet?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. There is going to be a discovering money you didn't even know you had. It's a simple guide, a couple little tips and things that you can actually discover money that you didn't even realize that was even existing. So, and it's going to be available for you. It is just a simple download. Why not start where you're at? Get the steps in place and take advantage of it.
Find that money, baby, because there's
That's
always
right.
money, always
There's
money,
always money there. The trick is
always
finding it.
money there. Yeah. And it's just like every time I organize a client, we find money.
Yeah.
Always, in the
Yeah,
course.
yeah, because they don't even realize it. And that's the
Oh,
trick is what can you do? How can you, what little things can you find to actually realize there's more there than you thought? Because after all, money doesn't spend itself.
it hides. And
Oh,
that's
it
why
hides well.
them on top of that money that is laying around that they've totally
Mhm.
forgot about or didn't make use of. So I love that free resource. It's perfect. Everybody make sure to grab it on the download. The download link will be
Awesome.
below. Do you have the URL right now that you could speak if people are listening?
It's one of those, it'd be easier to click on the link at this point. We could do Excel your profits. That's probably where it's
Okay,
going as far as that. There's going to be Excel your profits and you'll be able to access it from there.
perfect. So sell your profits 1, 2, 3, right?
Nope, just Excel your profits is what it's going to be.
Yourprofits.com.
Yeah, it's all rolling out into my new programs, which are going to be all about, of course, it's tweaking off of Excel training and consulting. So Excel with Me Training and Consulting is now going to have Excel your profits because that's what our focus is going to be. Because once we get everything under control, we got to start focusing in on those profits because that's
Yeah.
profits. It's going to help them to grow and to be more successful.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you started with Excel with that client. You don't just jump them into something heavy duty like QuickBooks right away, ease
No.
them into the process. So wherever you are and whoever you are, there are steps to get you into
Mhm.
the proactive way to handle your finances.
Absolutely.
And it's
And it's
great.
all about going to Excel. If you think about EXCEL, how do you excel in life, your business,
Yeah.
all the way around? And that's what we're bringing this umbrella on is how can we excel? And we do that one step at a time.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks, Janet. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Oh,
You're
thank you
a
so
wealth of
much.
information.
It has been so much fun. It's been a great time. So, and it's great to get to know you as well and how we can work together to make sure that we make this simple for folks because it's overwhelming.
It is until you know that it is
Doesn't have to
simple.
be.
Once
It
you know
is.
those simple steps, and that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Janet, take care. And thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody make sure to check out the download and make sure to connect with Janet Ickes because she is the master at numbers.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, take care. Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to hear more, feel free to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Also, if you feel so inclined, I would truly appreciate a good rating from you to me. Have a stellar day.